as much as I want to be bullish here, um, I can't help but look at these charts, everyone, and just say to myself, well, Solana is at like must hold territory here. Um, so, when Gordon was going through the presentation talking about radium and volumes, the key takeaway for me was that the majority of the trading volume on Solana is in meme coins. The majority of the trading volume on Solana is not in high quality pairs. And so what that means is the moment you see a decline in memes, Sol really needs to hold support here, you guys. And Wes was in the chat saying, hey, Sol looks like it moves lower from here. We can't just be blindly bullish. We have to not only build a bull thesis, but also we have to be open to, maybe there's an opportunity to be bearish here. So when I'm looking at Sol, and I'm still hanging on for dear life in my DeFi tuna LPs, Rini, but I gotta say, if Sol breaks this support, then the next real level of support, I think, comes in all the way down here at like, in the 120s or so. So, I think that here's another thing though. For whatever reason, Bitcoin, it always looks dumpiest before pumpiest. So, and whenever people, whenever there's a move to the upside, in Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, any asset, analysts like to ascribe the price action to a piece of news when really price moves and then the news item happens. So price moves first. So what I'm looking for here in Sol is, well, if it breaks, I'm out. I'm just out, and I'm going to wait for quite a while to re-enter anything in Sol. But I mean, this is like the level, you guys. This is like we got to hold. We've got to hold this trend line support. Um, and if this does not hold, then maybe there's plenty more room to the downside here in Sol. And what we have not seen yet in BTC is we have not seen yet this bull cycle. We have not seen the 30% dip. We saw it last year, but it played out over the course of 6 months. We have not seen the 30% dip that flushes everyone out, where everyone says, "Ah, cycle's over, bull run ended," and then that's when you get the rip to the upside. So, I'm looking at this here, and ETH too. ETH is trading, below its 200-day SMA. We had a nice pump earlier today, but we're not even able to test the underside of the 200-day SMA before getting rejected. So, look, I'm still in my ETH LPs. I'm still in my Sol LPs sitting out of range. But the way that I've been able to reduce the risk in my portfolio is by being mostly allocated to BTC. The majority of my portfolio is allocated to BTC. And, I'm willing to earn less in yield holding BTC and being in BTC pairs while I wait for some clear direction from alts. And so I'm watching ETH BTC closely. I'm looking for signs that this thing has bottomed. And so far, I don't see that. So here's ETH BTC, and we've been watching this for years. Now, let's go ahead and let's zoom out here a little bit because everyone likes to share this chart. Everyone shares this ETH BTC chart, and everyone's been saying for years, oh, this is the low. Oh, no, this is the low. Oh, no, this is the low. But when you zoom out to a weekly, now we've got all the data here going back all the way to 2015, actually. Now, if I just, super, super simple technical analysis here, I just draw trend line support. ETH against its BTC pair broke support back in November. and has done nothing but move lower since then. Now, where is there further support to the downside here? Well, looks like we bounced pretty much at horizontal support right here. Now, does this turn out to be the low in ETH priced in BTC? Is this going to be the low? Or is there further room to the downside? Well, ask yourself this question. What is the catalyst to push ETH higher? Because if we're stuck relying on the Bitcoin halving cycle analysis, well, we should have already seen ETH pump. It hasn't. And so let's touch on that Bitcoin halving cycle analysis for a moment. So here's Bitcoin dominance. And everyone likes to say, okay, well, based on a certain number of days after the halving event, that should indicate, okay, here's alt season. Well, alt season has not come. And when we look back at last cycle, we had a once in a generation, or maybe even longer than that, black swan event in COVID. And the entire world was forced to stay home. The Fed printed $4 trillion in 18 months. People were given stimulus checks. And what did they do? They bought shit coins. And so this, if we're waiting for this, we might be waiting for a long time. Because I don't know about you guys, but I find it hard to see a scenario in which we see a repeat of the insanity from last cycle. So what is the catalyst for alt season? What is that catalyst? I'm struggling to see what that catalyst could be. Maybe Mr. Scott Bessent does something at the Treasury that is, akin to QE, and maybe that helps to boost, high risk altcoin asset prices. Maybe. But in the absence of any clear catalyst, I want to be Bitcoin heavy. And so it's really, really easy for me to build a bullish thesis for BTC. How do we go from 95K to 150K this year? Well, institutions are starting to go from 0% allocation to 2% allocation to BTC. That's a really easy bullish thesis to make. Just saying, hey, institutions are buying Bitcoin. That pushes the price up. Simple. But what about alts? Well, if alts are just going to be dragged higher against their US dollar pairs, but if they don't outperform their BTC pairs, then maybe it makes more sense just to be Bitcoin heavy until you see Bitcoin dominance start to really break down. So I'm watching Bitcoin dominance closely here. I'm watching ETH BTC and I'm watching Sol BTC closely here. And I'm still in my ETH LPs. I'm still in my Sol LPs. But oh my goodness, it is time for a bounce in alts. And ETH and Sol need to lead the way. And if they don't, if ETH and Sol have another leg to the downside, then I think it makes a lot of sense to consider just exiting alts entirely unless your horizon is long term. So if you're in an altcoin position because you think that over the next month or 3 months, alts are going to run, well, that horizon is very short term. But if you're holding an alt like Sui because you think, hey, you know what? This technology that Sui's developed with their Move programming language, the transactions per second of the chain, that maybe there's an opportunity that this really does well and attracts a lot of TVL over the coming years, and you're willing to hold Sui for a period of years, well, that makes a lot of sense. But if you're in this because you think, okay, over the next 3 months, Sui is going from $3 to $15, well, then it's just kind of a difficult. That's not really a bullish thesis. That's just kind of a hope and a prayer. So yeah, I'm looking at these charts here, and my goodness, it is time for a bounce. It's time for a bounce in ETH. It's time for a bounce in Sol. And if they don't bounce, then I really just want to take less risk by being mostly in Bitcoin.